The wounds that make us whole, how trauma transforms into our greatest strength. Good morning. Today, I want to challenge everything you think you know about trauma, resilience, and what it truly means to heal. I recently had the extraordinary privilege of interviewing Janyca Hughes-Slaughter, a force of nature whose journey has shattered conventional wisdom about how we move through our deepest wounds. Janyca isn't just inspiring, she's revolutionary. Her work has created ripples of transformation that have touched thousands of lives, particularly within the Black professional community. What makes her approach so powerful is that she doesn't just survive her traumas, she alchemizes them into gold that others can use to forge their own path forward. What I learned from Janyca fundamentally shifts how we think about trauma and triumph. And that revelation is what I'm here to share with you today. We live in a world obsessed with perfection, aren't we? A world that tells us success means erasing our struggles, hiding our scars, presenting a flawless image. We're conditioned to believe that to be truly resilient, we must somehow transcend our traumas completely, leaving them behind as if they never happened, as if they never shaped us. But what if everything we've been taught about resilience is backward? What if our greatest strength doesn't come from moving beyond our wounds, but through them? What if our scars aren't meant to be hidden, but honored as sacred maps of our journey? This is the counterintuitive truth I discovered through my conversation with Yanyeka. Resilience and professional success are not defined by the absence of trauma, but by how we choose to move through it. The conventional wisdom tells us that overcoming adversity means erasing its impact. But Janica showed me something different, something she calls perfect imperfection. It's the radical act of owning our mistakes, our struggles, our diagnoses, and our darkest moments not as failures to overcome, but as lessons and blessings that become sources of strength and inspiration. This isn't just feel good philosophy, it's a transformative approach to life that challenges everything we think we know about healing and success. Let me share three profound insights from my conversation with Yanika that illuminate this path. First, your diagnosis or circumstances do not determine your destiny. Whether facing kidney disease, Hashimoto's, homelessness, or other life altering challenges, your ability to persist and adapt can lead you toward new opportunities. The story doesn't end with the diagnosis, it begins there. Second, vulnerability is a superpower in leadership. Sharing your authentic story, including struggles with abuse, trauma, and setbacks, can empower both yourself and others, especially within the Black professional community, where the pressure to appear perfect can be overwhelming. And third, every setback can be transformed into a ripple of positive change. By refusing to let adversity silence your ambition, you demonstrate that every day offers an opportunity to make an impact. These aren't just nice ideas, they're principles backed by powerful real world examples of women who have transformed their deepest pain into purpose. Consider Dr. Thema Bryant Davis. As a young Black woman in academia, Dr. Bryant Davis faced relentless racial bias that would have broken many spirits. While building her career as a clinical psychologist, specializing in trauma recovery, she also endured profound family loss that shook the foundations of her world. But here's what's remarkable about Dr. Bryant Davis. She didn't compartmentalize these experiences or try to overcome them in the traditional sense. Instead, she wove them into the very fabric of her work. The discrimination she faced informed how she developed culturally responsive therapy models. Her personal grief deepened her understanding of trauma's impact. Her faith journey through these challenges led her to integrate spiritual practices that many traditional therapeutic approaches neglect. Today, Dr. Brian Davis serves as president of the American Psychological Association, the highest position in her field. She's authored groundbreaking books on healing racial trauma and led workshops that have empowered thousands of survivors. But her true impact goes beyond these impressive credentials. By sharing her own journey through discrimination and adversity, she's given countless professionals across industries the tools to build resilience rooted in cultural identity and authentic self expression. This is what happens when we embrace our perfect imperfection. Or consider Rachel Cargill, whose personal journey included surviving abusive relationships while navigating higher education as a single mother. Many would have kept these experiences private, especially while building a professional reputation. But Cargill recognized that her story reflected a systemic reality: the profound gaps in mental health resources for Black women experiencing abuse and financial hardship. Rather than compartmentalizing this experience or hiding it away, she channeled it into founding the Loveland Foundation, creating funding initiatives that provide free therapy sessions nationwide for Black women and girls impacted by violence and homelessness. Since 2018, the Loveland Foundation has distributed over $5 million toward therapy grants. But more importantly, it has fundamentally shifted the national dialogue about self care from luxury to necessity, especially for professionals facing compounded stressors. Cargill's willingness to transform her personal trauma into systemic change has created a lifeline for women who previously had nowhere to turn. And then there's Kamisha Jones, a social worker whose path took a devastating turn after college when she lost stable housing due partly to medical costs related to thyroid disorder and kidney complications. While battling depression exacerbated by chronic illness and housing instability, Jones could have focused solely on her own survival. Many would have. Instead, she founded the Sister Afia Community Mental Wellness Center, providing sliding scale group counseling and workshops focused on holistic healing, including creative expression alongside traditional talk therapy. Since 2017, they've treated hundreds annually using peer led support circles that reduce isolation and stigma around mental illness. Jones grew her nonprofit into Chicago's largest wellness hub, centering lived experience expertise, setting new standards nationally for how grassroots organizations led by us for us can drive lasting change across both entrepreneurial and professional spheres. What these stories share, what Janyca Hughes-Slaughter's journey exemplifies, is a profound inversion of how we typically think about trauma and success. They show us that our wounds aren't obstacles to overcome on the path to achievement. They are the very soil from which our greatest contributions grow. This is particularly resonant for Black women professionals who have long been expected to embody the strong Black woman archetype, to carry teams, raise families, hold down households, and support communities without showing vulnerability or fatigue. The pressure to appear perpetually strong and put together creates an impossible standard that denies the very humanity that makes connection possible. What Yannicka and these remarkable women demonstrate is that there is another way, a soft girl era, if you will, where strength isn't measured by how much you can endure in silence, but by how authentically you can share your journey and create space for others to do the same. This isn't about wallowing in pain or using trauma as an excuse. It's about alchemizing it, transforming it into something precious and powerful that serves not just your healing, but the healing of others. When you embrace your perfect imperfection, something miraculous happens. The very experiences that once made you feel isolated become bridges of connection. The struggles that once seemed meaningless reveal their purpose. The wounds that once felt like weaknesses become well springs of wisdom and compassion. This transformation doesn't happen overnight. It requires courage, the courage to look unflinchingly at your pain, to name it, to honor it, and ultimately to share it in service of something greater than yourself. It requires patience, the understanding that healing isn't linear, that some days will be harder than others, and that's okay. And it requires community, people who can hold space for your truth without trying to fix it, who can witness your journey without judgment, who can remind you of your strength when you forget. But perhaps most importantly, it requires a fundamental shift in how you see yourself and your story. It means recognizing that you are not defined by what happened to you, but by how you choose to integrate those experiences into the tapestry of your life. This is what it means to be perfectly imperfect. To understand that your value doesn't come from presenting a flawless image to the world, but from embracing the full spectrum of your humanity, including the parts that hurt, the parts that are still healing, the parts that bear witness to your resilience. I want you to imagine something with me. Imagine a world where we no longer feel compelled to hide our wounds, where we understand that our scars are not signs of weakness, but testaments to our strength. Imagine workplaces where vulnerability is valued as much as productivity, where authentic leadership includes acknowledging struggles alongside celebrating successes. Imagine communities where no one has to suffer in silence, where asking for help is seen as an act of courage rather than an admission of failure. This isn't just a nice vision, it's an urgent necessity because the truth is, we're all carrying something. We're all wounded in some way. And in pretending otherwise, we're not just hurting ourselves, we're perpetuating systems that crush authentic human connection and sustainable success. So I challenge you today. What wound are you hiding that might become your greatest gift to the world if you dare to integrate it rather than bury it? What pain are you carrying that, if transformed, might become your most powerful platform for change? The world doesn't need more perfect people. It needs more perfectly imperfect people who have the courage to show up with their whole selves, scars, struggles, and all, and say, this is me. This is my story. And this is how I'm using it to make a difference. How will you turn today's pain into tomorrow's power? And what ripple effect will your courage create in someone else's timeline? The answer to that question might just be your greatest contribution to our collective healing. Thank you.